Bonjour, broskies. Ever wonder how $18 million worth of maple syrup was stolen from the Quebec Mafia? I'm torn because this really enforces Canadian stereotypes, but also $18 million? But yeah, one stereotype people have about Canada is our love of maple syrup. But what they don't associate us with is the mafia and heisting. Yet here we are today. I use the term mafia, which I'll admit it's a bit of a stretch, but you decide for yourself if it's fitting. As a country that produces around 75% of the world's maple products, we take maple syrup very seriously, especially Quebec, with almost all of Canada's maple syrup stemming from there. It's a tricky business, with sales each year being either make or break. To help form some stability, Quebec formed the FPAQ, better known as the Federation. They regulate and control all maple syrup sales in Quebec, acting as a government-sanctioned private cartel. No comment. They control the setting of our story, Quebec's maple syrup strategic reserve. When you hear strategic reserve, what comes to mind? Is it the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, which collects seeds in case of a global emergency? Or maybe you thought of the Frozen Ark, which collects the DNA of endangered animals. Hey, random Quebecer, what comes to your mind? Get out of here, you English. You. This is Quebec. We speak French, you. Wow. I suddenly feel like looking for the Holy Grail now. The warehouse this all took place in opened in 2011. It opened as a temporary location while renovations were being done on the actual warehouses. When did the theft start? 2011. Keyword start. This wasn't a one-time offense. This was a planned heist that lasted several months. On paper, or waffles, your choice, it was simple. Go in, steal the barrels, take them to a secondary location to be siphoned, fill it with water, and drop it back off to the warehouse. Already there are some flaws. If you're a maple lover like me, you already know that a kilogram of maple syrup is heavier than a kilogram of water. A 600-pound barrel of maple syrup cannot lead to the same barrel holding 600 pounds of water. But to be fair, I can't imagine anyone attempting to lift anything they think will be 600 pounds. After a while, they ditched the water thing and even the secondary location. Their end goal here was packaging it into smaller quantities and shipping it out of Quebec to avoid the maple syrup police. Because otherwise, I think the Federation would have them in a basement tied up before you could even say taba. But how are they so successful for months, even despite their growing laziness? Well, for starters, there weren't any cameras. It was a temporary location, but still. I guess that's another Canadian stereotype they took for granted. They weren't too worried about the maple syrup going oot in a boot. And secondly, would you believe it if I told you that they only plan to inspect it once a year? They plan to check one of the major Canadian exports and economic advantages once a year. I know there's a specific name for a product that's only made in one spot, but I don't care enough about business students for that. Want to take a guess at when this whole thing was discovered? When a maple syrup inspector almost had the chance at a lawsuit that would change their life. Le bal de 600 livres tombera pas. Le bal de 600 livres rempli de syrup table va made. Oh mon Dieu! After the inspector did some more inspecting, they found a lot of easy-to-spot clues. You know, if they actually checked it regularly. One clue was that the thieves were filthy, and not in the rich way. The barrels were reported as dirty and rusty, which is impossible because, one, if all the world's maple syrup will be traced back to you, you bet your boots are going to stay on top of health and safety. And two, maple syrup can't even produce rust. Well, if you do it right. Sadly, all good things must come to an end, even for dirty maple syrup thieves. Over a dozen men were arrested as suspects, with the final 5 being confirmed as perpetrators. Or victims, which they tried to claim. Their supposed leader was Richard Vallières, who claimed he already had beef with the Federation. He said they tracked him down and stole his house. Well, that didn't stop him from getting 8 years in prison and a $9.5 million fine. Should have been harsher, really. Death penalty for such a heinous crime. Quebec didn't agree with the sentiment and reduced the fine in 2016 to $1 million because that's what he claimed to be the actual profit. The actual profit out of $18 million worth of maple syrup, mind you. But then in 2022, Canada stepped in and was like, hey buddy, can't have you doing that again. Don't want the other hosers playing that game like the Leafs, you know. So you're still gonna have to pay that original fine. Boy, you're lucky we don't double that on ya, eh? Anyways, here's a coffee from Tim's. It's a Gretzky. They managed to actually track down some of the maple syrup, but a lot of it was unusable since it was contaminated. It made its way all over, with some even coming from the States, which makes it even funnier since that turned it into an international investigation. All in all, they managed to track down around 1 million pounds out of the 6 million that was stolen. Wow, 6 million? That's almost as heavy as your mom. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So yeah, if you want to steal $18 million worth of maple syrup, the cost will be $9.5 million. Sounds like a profit if you actually do it right. Anyways, peace out. I gotta start learning some more French for my secret summer plans. Also need to make a trip to Costco for pancake mix. Ciao. Sorry. Adieu.